Hi, welcome back to the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast. I'm Lisa Salisbury, and my mission is to help women stop obsessing about everything they eat and feel confident about their ability to lose weight without a diet app. Today, I've got David Greenwalt as my guest, and we are going to be discussing ultra-processed foods. What are they, why they can be considered addictive, and what you can do to avoid them. We discuss strategies for starting out and getting real food into your diet. We also introduced the concept of obesogenic factors and how to manage those. David and I have a lot of the same concepts, but we express them differently, so I'm excited for you to hear another take. One thing I didn't mention when we are talking about great ways for people to get started on improving their health is my go-to meals concept. This helps you to know what to eat when your brain is telling you there isn't any good options. I've made this into a free ebook for you, and you can download that from the link in the show notes. Now, let's get on with that interview with David. Welcome to Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well, the podcast for women who want to lose weight but are tired of counting and calculating all the food. I'm your host, Lisa Salisbury. I'm a certified health and weight loss coach and life coach, and most importantly, a recovered chronic dieter. I'll teach you to figure out why you are eating when you aren't hungry instead of worrying so much about what you are eating. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have David Greenwalt as my guest. I'm super excited. He reached out to me and he is just a wealth of information. As always, I like my guests to introduce themselves. So I'm going to turn it over to him to give us a little intro and tell us what he's all about.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. It's so good to be here. So I am David Greenwalt. I'm a Midwesterner, born and raised in Illinois, and still live there. But right now, we're out of state, enjoying some sun. But married, 3 grown kids, 28 to 33. Got our little dog Scoop. He's a little Maltese, and I have been involved in fitness and coaching for over 30 years. I've been online coaching as a virtual health coach for 23 years. I started this business in 1999. In the past, I was a former competitive bodybuilder and powerlifter and police officer, and no longer I don't compete in those. I play around, but not in powerlifting. But anyway, still very enthusiastic about fitness and helping people and taking care of myself as well. I've been doing this a long time and I really enjoy it. And I just love helping people get from where they are to the place or a better place, whatever that may be.
I definitely relate to that. I get off client calls and my family's like, "Why are you in such a good mood?" I'm like, "Because I just love helping people. I'm such a dork."
Yeah, no, not at all. I get it.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you coach or what your philosophy is with health and weight loss, those sorts of things.
So, I had a major breakthrough early on, fortunately, in my coaching career. I was in my early 30s then, and that's, 99. So, I was wondering what was going on with people. At that time, I was like, why are these otherwise really successful, good, smart, everything going for them in every other way, struggling so much to eat less and exercise more? I'm throwing that in quotes. You can't see me doing air quotes, and calories in, calories out, eat less and exercise more. Yes, we need balance, but what is going on? What is so difficult? And fortunately, I ran across, at that time, I was interviewing people for my coaching program back in the 90s, and I would put the recordings out on cassette tape. And I'm not kidding you. And I would send out cassettes by the hundreds to people because there was no internet, or it was just coming in. And but I met Kay Shepard, and Kay Shepard is a food addiction expert and author and a self-admitted food addict. I'm not saying anything out of turn here. She writes about it. She's an expert on it. She has an inpatient treatment facility and so on and so on. Anyway, I had read her book and I thought, I've got to interview this woman because she really helped me understand just a part, but a big part of what was going on and what made this seemingly very just logical, rational thing of calories in, calories out, eat less, exercise more, be very much not that. And gave a very good explanation as to at least one factor that was contributing to the compulsive overeating and compulsive food behaviors. So that was very early on. And since then, I've just continued to obviously grow and learn and work with people every day. I'm an avid peer-reviewed, published, science reader. And anyway, with all that said, where we are now, because you were asking, what's your philosophy? I've taken that plus so many other elements, and I have a very good understanding, I believe, of what's going on in this incredibly obesogenic environment that we're all living in. And it's very much underrated. It's very much minimized or underappreciated at how incredibly driving it is externally and internal, all those external and internal obesogenic factors. And by obesogenic, it just means all of the factors that contribute to behaviors that drive obesity. External factors, internal factors, but there's so many of them. And so we come at it from a very comprehensive position, and we want to look at all of those factors, and we want to look at everything from, addiction to emotional fitness. We want to make sure people do have, a good, solid, evidence-based foundation on their nutrition and their activity components. And then we look at, the primary driver of willpower and things like that. So it's really, those are big umbrellas. When I say obesogenic factors, there's a number of those. When I say emotional fitness, there's a number of factors there.
Yeah. Obesogenic factors isn't something I've talked about on the show. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think a lot of people are feeling like what you said in the beginning. They're so capable, they're so intelligent. It's like, if I'm so smart, why can't I figure this out? It's like the one thing in my life. You see these really really high power people that still struggle seemingly with their weight. And it's not because I'm body judging them or just, body checking, just deciding that they're overweight. They come to me and they say, I want to change, right?
Right.
It's not that I'm just talking about people that I see. I'm talking about actual clients that say, I want to make these changes. So what are some of those factors that we're seeing in our culture today?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've got obesogenic factors within us, not anything that we can control. It's just something to be aware of. There is a biological drive. It's been with us since we've been upright, since we've been Homo sapiens, and it drives us for calorie dense foods. And that's, way back when food wasn't plentiful, it wasn't 24/7, it wasn't on every corner, it wasn't in convenience marts and fast food and you name it. We needed that to help keep us alive, because being driven to calorie dense food could sustain us for a period of a day, 2, 3, whatever it took until food was available again. In our modern environment, it's hurting us because it's available everywhere. It's 24/7, but we're still driven for it. So we do have a biological drive.
Yeah.
So because that's not anything we can do really anything about, it's just something to be aware of. But that is an obesogenic factor. Okay, that hasn't changed in eons. So
What's
we
hap-
have
what
just our,
kind of
go ahead.
what's changed though is it's like the environment has changed though, right? Because that
Yes,
has worked. That has actually kept us alive for
you're right.
eons. But it's
Exactly.
only been in the last 100 years that there's a grocery store and a McDonald's or Carl's Jr., whatever is
Right.
the one on my corner. Like the nearest restaurant to me there's literally 2 fast food restaurants on the corners of the main intersection where I live. And so our brains, like evolutionary wise, have not caught up to that, right?
That's right.
So, yeah.
That's right. And so, when we get into factors that have changed greatly over the last 50, or to 100 years, but definitely in the last 50, 60 years, it is, the number of fast food restaurants. So the
Mhm.
availability of it, the 24/7 aspect, the convenience marts with all of the things that are in there. The other thing is that the in quote food supply has changed dramatically as well. The research is saying that in the United States, adults are about 60% of what we consume is ultra processed food. I'm going to say they are behind. I'm going to say they have missed it. And I'm going to say that's way too low. I think,
Mhm.
I think based on because I live and breathe this every single day, and I have for so long. I think currently in the United States, adults are at about 90% ultra processed food, maybe 10% real food. And so
Okay.
so as far as the obesogenic factors, what I say is collectively, all factors that contribute to the overconsumption of ultra processed food, including the fact that ultra processed food is addictive itself, all of those factors collectively are the single greatest reason why we are in the position we are in the United States for obesity that we are. And it's not good. Today, we're at 43% obese. In
Mm.
1970, we were at 15%. By 2030, we're supposed to be 50%. So we are losing this battle, and all of those factors that contribute to the overconsumption of ultra processed food, all of those factors which are obesogenic, again, including the fact that ultra processed food is addictive in and of itself, are the single greatest contributors to why we are where we are. So,
Okay.
I put a lot of emphasis on that ultra processed food and the
Yeah.
factors that drive it.
Yeah. So tell us what you consider ultra processed food, because you're saying research is saying we're eating 60 some odd percent ultra processed, but when you say you think it's more like 90, is that based on when adults come to you and say, "Hey, this is what I'm eating," and so you're taking a look at their food journals and figuring it's about 90%?
Yes, and
Okay.
uh, general polling. The clients that come to me, like you were saying, the clients that come to you, it's very exciting when you have a breakthrough. We ask, we get very personal as they are willing to and they want to, only at the level that they're comfortable with. I think it's easier to give a definition of real food and then kind of
Okay.
look at not quite everything else is ultra processed food, but we really start tilting that way pretty fast. So, as far as real food goes, my working definition is adapted from a food classification called the NOVA food classification system. NOVA food classification system was developed by a professor in Brazil, been around now at least 10 years, and it's not perfect, but of the food classification systems out there, it's, in my opinion, the best one we have so far. It doesn't just rely on nutrients. It doesn't just say that if something's nutrient rich, which is a nutricentric approach, in other words, if it has the vitamins and the minerals and the fiber and the protein and the whatever, if it has those things in it, then we're okay. As long as it has those things, we're okay. That's a
Mhm.
nutricentric view. And don't get me wrong, nutrients are very important, sure. Um, the NOVA food classification system looks at processing and looks
Okay.
at the impact of processing and then categorizes foods based on the level of processing. Okay, so my working definition of real food is adapted from that. So I like to say that. And it is a working definition. It's one where, I could say it fairly easily and people can remember it fairly easily once they hear it a couple times. So it's
Okay.
otherwise there's so much nuance and granular detail if we get into the real science. Okay. So my working definition of real food adapted is the whole or minimally processed edible parts of plant and animal, where if anything has been added to it, it is only the whole or minimally processed ingredients commonly found in kitchens.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
So we start with a whole or minimally processed edible part of plant or animal. Okay. A chicken breast, broccoli, strawberries, fish, whatever.
Sure.
And if anything's been added to it, it's only the whole or minimally processed ingredients commonly found in kitchens.
So would you consider sauces like say like a soy sauce, as you take that chicken and broccoli and you add soy sauce to that? Is that a commonly found ingredient, or would those things be considered processed for you?
I would want to see the ingredients,
Mhm.
because that's always going to be important. Um, once I see the ingredients, we can answer it, a lot easier.
Yeah.
Um, that could be a minimally processed. It isn't going to be a whole or natural
Right.
compound, or substance, but it could be minimally processed.
But something like maybe more singular ingredient like vinegar, that's gonna be
Vinegar.
made like from a
Yep,
fruit, yeah,
that's
would
right.
be something commonly found in a kitchen.
Yep. salt,
Mhm.
pepper, spices, vinegars, some condiments, oils, things like that. As far as like the easy ones, those are your easy ones that are more single
Mhm.
ingredient, kind of thing. But a multi ingredient, packaged food that could still be real food and hit the definition is just think of like a marinara sauce or something.
Mm.
Tomatoes, basil, garlic, oregano, so on, so
Mhm.
on, right? And
Mhm.
nothing else added for preservatives. It's in a glass jar, so on and so on, right? And there are a number of things where when you look at the ingredients, you go, yeah, all of those are things commonly found in kitchens, and the base of it, whatever it was the minimally processed edible part of a plant and animal. Once we've got that, and we stop looking at the front of the package, well, you can
Well,
look at the
that's
front
just
of the package.
advertising.
That's where the marketing is. Yeah,
That's
it's
what all those words are just advertising.
right. But if we spin it around and look at it, then we can start to look at is it real food? And this isn't in any way, shape, or form. I want to make sure I'm clear. It's in no way, shape, or form is this any kind of a someone's better than someone else if they eat real food versus ultra processed. There's nothing. There's
Sure.
zero. It's all about the research continues to mount and comes out daily, weekly, monthly, and over and over and over, we see that the people who are consuming the most ultra processed food are just simply doing the worst in every way imaginable. Their health is the
Mhm.
worst. Their mental health is the worst. Diabetes is the worst. Non communicable diseases, cardiovascular disease, non alcoholic fatty liver disease, autoimmune disease. It just take your pick. I mean, seriously, take your pick. If
Mhm.
those not every single person, of course, but when we look at the mass numbers and we start to stratify people based on whether they are large consumers, I should say large users of ultra processed food, because it really becomes that. No
Mhm.
longer a consumer, it's more user based because they're so addictive. Um, all of the negatives go up, and the people who consume the least, the negatives are minimized or much reduced.
Yeah. So ultra processed food is definitely something that we want to work to start eliminating from our diet. So as we're doing that, people might be thinking, well, that's great, but right now that's kind of what keeps my kids alive. Keeps me able to like get food on the table because we might think it's our only option. I've had clients that tell me they don't know how to cook, that which is a problem today. So what could be kind of the first thing we want to eliminate if we're like, well, what do we wanna start with before we're jumping all the way from fast food every day to only chicken and broccoli, which, of course, we're not advocating. But, like, what would be the most important thing to start with on that kind of ultra processed food? Is it a particular ingredient or a particular type of food?
Right. So we typically, well, first of all, you're absolutely right. And no one I would in a million years would I recommend that they try to go from, like you said, 90% or 100% ultra processed food to, I don't want anybody going to chicken breast and broccoli. I mean, it's
Right.
just not going to happen. Maybe a bodybuilder 3 days from their show or something. But I mean, other than that, no. Um, so it's about increasing real food and having that displace the ultra processed food. Because what's happened is the reverse has happened. What's happened is ultra processed food has displaced real food. The way we ate for hundreds of thousands of years was real food.
Right.
There's kind of a meme that goes around that says what your great grandparents call, what we call real food is what your great grandparents called just food. You know,
Yeah.
and
They just called
so
that dinner.
it's just about moving in that direction. So if we can increase vegetables a bit, if we can increase whole real fruit a bit, if we can increase real, you know, meat, whatever it is, if you're an omnivore, more of the real, and of course you want the animals to be grown humanely, and you want them free of, and you want pastured and da 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 da, all that, grass fed and all that. Move more toward that. And this isn't about being perfect. No one's going to get this perfect. We don't have to be our bodies are amazing, but we are overwhelming them with this 90%. I'm saying 90. Research is, again, it's always 2-3 years behind, but they're saying 60 based on a study. But we've overwhelmed it. And so if
Mhm.
we can just, you know, hide our vegetables, riced cauliflower, in something that's got a stronger flavor. You
Mhm.
don't even know riced cauliflower is in chili,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah, don't pretend I like that because I don't like to pretend it's rice or pretend cauliflower is pasta, but I totally agree. I actually use riced cauliflower in other things to
Yeah,
increase the vegetable content. And I like what you were saying too before. I call that crowding out
yeah,
rather than when, my clients are like, I probably shouldn't be eating this or shouldn't be eating that. And so instead we say, well, what do you want to be eating?
yeah.
Let's talk about what we want to add in. And then that naturally will crowd out the other foods. When we're adding in, like, okay, we want to add in another serving of vegetables. Well, that's going to crowd out a serving of something else if we're really paying attention to our hunger and fullness cues then.
Yeah, and that is exactly what's happened in reverse.
Right.
We've crowded
Exactly.
out the real food that we lived on for hundreds of thousands of years. We've crowded that out. Um, and the other thing too, if I can say too, is I take a view. People will say, they have this good or bad connotation or healthy,
Mm.
unhealthy connotation to food, and it starts to become it can feel yucky or like it's got a moral base to it,
Well,
and
because then we label ourselves good or bad for eating those foods.
right. And
Hmm.
so I don't look at good, bad, healthy, unhealthy. One of the things that I do, especially now that you've got at least my working definition of real food, is I just look at two things. Is it real food? Does it work for you?
Mm. Hmm.
Because even if it's real food, it doesn't mean that it will. An example could
Right.
be,
Like, I can't eat bananas. They make
okay,
me nauseous.
there
I
you
don't
go.
know why.
Right,
They do not sit well.
right. And a lot of people have their thing. And sometimes for my clients that are interested in going from someplace heavier to someplace leaner, it could be something like peanuts. You take a jar of peanuts and it says peanuts and salt. It's real
Mhm.
food. Whole or da da
Sure.
da da da. Only thing added to it was salt, commonly found in kitchens. Got it. Minimally processed. Had to get it there to get it in the jar. Got it. Um, does it work for you? Not if they open the jar and eat the jar. And I can speak from that, perspective because, like, for me, 25 years ago, I lost 50 of my own excess pounds, and fortunately, I've kept it off for 25 years. But prior to that, if I had peanut butter in the house, a serving of peanut butter for me is a cup and a half, not a tablespoon, And so you could say, Dave, it was peanuts and salt, and that was the ingredients. Well, does it work for you? And my answer would be no. So it could be, and also it could be an allergy. It could be, like you said, it could be nausea. It could be whatever, but it could be something that you overeat easily. Maybe,
Mhm.
and in that case, we just have to answer. It's not bad or good, but does it work for you? Is it real food,
Mhm.
and does it work for you? Are kind of the two questions that I like to ask.
I like that. So we decide we want to start to eliminate some of those ultra processed foods. We've made some promises. We've started again on Monday. I always tell my clients the best time to start is at your very next bite. But most people instead, they want to start on Monday, and that's fine. We're actually just coming off the new year. We've just passed Quitter's Day, which is I think January 19th.
Yeah.
So you might be ready to start again by the time this episode comes. If you don't know what Quitter's Day is, it's the most common day that people quit their New Year's resolutions, and it's somewhere around January 19th. So we know that staying on track is a challenge. We know people make promises to themselves and then they don't. They don't do it. So how do you think is the best way for people to stay on track?
Well, again, because of these obesogenic factors that we've touched on, it's what's driving willpower is what I say it's why power drives willpower.
Mm.
Okay. So people have willpower. Anybody listening has achieved something big in their life, whatever it may be, education, family, some job, whatever it may be. They've accomplished things. And anything that took a lot of effort and time and sacrifice, it was done with incredible willpower, but what was driving that was why power. So, one of the things I'll ask just people to just ask themselves is, if you work for someone else, when was the last time you were late for work? Most people say never. Well, are you always in a good mood? How come you're never late for work? Are you never sick? Are you always happy to go in? Are you just fired up? and the answer is no, 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 then why do you go? Well, because I need the job, because of this, because of this. And they can give you a list that's maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 things long. And those things are incredibly important. Those things being their why for going to work are incredibly important. And that why power drives the willpower. And the way I think of willpower is doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. And so
Okay.
what's going to drive that? Because you don't always feel like it, but
Right.
they
And
do it.
I was curious, let me jump in a little bit here. I was curious how I was going to actually ask you to define willpower, because I'm always trying to get my clients off of willpower, because I think the way most people think of it is willpower is like that like grit, or the holding tight and just like
Yeah.
powering through, kind of the
Yeah.
forcing. The type of willpower that runs out. It's like a muscle that fatigues. What
Yes.
you're talking about is what I consider the emotion of commitment, but you're calling it willpower, which is your why power. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there for
Yeah.
those of my listeners that are familiar with how I define willpower. You're definitely defining it a little differently. So that's
Yes.
totally fine. You keep going, but I just wanted to jump in with
Yeah.
that a little bit.
So we have a very strong why driving our willpower to go to work. Another thing is, like, for anybody who's got or had kids of school age or whatever, when was the last time you needed to pick them up from school or for soccer practice and you just said, nah, I'm done? You know, never.
No.
Or again, were you always in a good mood? Did you want to do it? Did you feel like it? No, you did what needed to be done when it needed to be done, whether you felt like it or not, because the thought of not being there for your child when they needed you, and all that, the potential ramifications that we play in our heads, and actual ramifications for not being, reliable for our kids, is devastating. And so it's not that nobody ever makes a mistake. Oh my gosh, I was late one time, or I did. People, we're human. But as far as
Mhm.
any kind of uh, consistency to that, absolutely not. So we have demonstrated incredible willpower. If you've achieved, an advanced degree, incredible willpower. If you've achieved some kind of profession that is incredibly difficult to get into, incredible willpower. If you've built a business, incredible. I mean, just the list goes on and on and on. But what's driving that each time, the reason you'll lose sleep for it, the reason you'll be there for that person who's counting on you, the reason you'll show up for yourself is because in each of those instances where you were successful in doing that, your why for driving willpower was incredibly strong. And I can't
Yeah.
emphasize enough how strong your why is going to have to be in our current environment to help overcome these obesogenic factors and keep driving the why and having it be consistent. Because, I'm not going to get into any kind of nitty gritties on nutrition, but I'll just say this, and this again is not literal, but I say I can teach you what you need to know about nutrition in about an hour. I can teach you what you need to know about exercise in about an hour. But what keeps those two things going in the direction they need to go, the behaviors that drive the nutrition and exercise components in the right direction to take your body anywhere you want it, health, weight, whatever you're looking to do, what keeps those two things consistent? Whypower is one of them.
Mhm.
Whypower driving willpower is one of them. When the why is strong enough, we find a way, and when it's not, we find an excuse. That's universal for all of us. So we need a stronger why than people think. Why do you want to lose 30 pounds? Yeah, just like to feel a little healthier.
Yeah, and that's not enough. Yeah.
That's not going to
We're not
work.
going to remain committed with, yeah, I'm always like, why? Why do you want to feel healthier?
And you're drilling down. So, it's one of the
Definitely.
things we do is we just keep drilling and drilling and drilling. And we've got strategies and whatnot that help our clients get to the real root of what's really driving them. And we have to have that. And
Mhm.
it's minimized, it's overlooked. It's thought of as, I just want to do it.
Right.
And it's not going to be enough because of all of these other factors, including, again, like I said, addiction, being one of them because of the ultra processed food.
I'm just curious, just because I like to hear some of them. I have like a list of my clients of some of their like big strong whys, because they go, I want to be healthier. Well, I want to live a long time. Like, why? And I like the ones, and this happens to be mine, but I have another client that is like, yeah, that's definitely mine too, is I want to be an influence for good on my grandchildren.
Yes.
Like, I'm only 47 and none of my children are married. I have one that is almost marriage age, I would consider. So
Yeah.
I'm not close to
Yeah.
grandchildren, and I'm not even close to an age where grandchildren would be influenced, right? You can't even influence a
Right.
baby. But
Right.
so like that's a compelling why for me and for some of my clients. Like I don't just want to be around when I'm 90 for no reason. I want to be around so that I can be an influence for good on my grandchildren. I'm just curious, what are some of these really massive whys that you've heard from your clients?
It there's so many, it's hard to even, have something that jumps out at me. What I'll say this is this. A lot of them are going to be prefixed in some way with self-confidence, self-pride, self-worth. There's that's some kind of element there. Um, there's going to be a lot of times some aspirational component to it. Not always. I want to be able to. You know, I want to be able to fit comfortably in a plane seat. I want to be
Right.
able to hike the Appalachian Trail. It can be really huge, or it can be,
Mhm.
oh, it's an everyday thing that they just don't feel comfortable, but they want to. It's aspirational. I want to be able to slide down the slide with my child or grandchild. I want to
Mhm.
be able to do that. And I just had someone pop into my head when you were just now asking that. I can picture her because she sent a video of her doing that when she couldn't before. Just something you go, well, that's pretty simple. Is it? It can be really, really powerful,
Yeah, that stuff
you
is
know?
huge. I had a client, he was like, "I just wanna be able to play pickleball."
Yeah,
With he's a youth leader, and he's like, "The boys were playing pickleball, and I thought I might break in half if I
right.
did that." He's like, I just wanna be able to play pickleball if they wanna play." And I think that's so true, like, that aspirational, and you gotta keep those things in mind.
And I've seen them. It's so personal for each person. I have seen whys that read amazing and just are just full of emotion and they're lengthy. And I've seen whys that are two short paragraphs,
Mhm.
both as compelling for each individual. It just, it varies so much, but we're going to look at, when we're looking at developing the why, we want to look at things like health and longevity. What are some things that are possibly, impactful to you? How might relationships improve? Is there any factor there? There may not be, but we want to at
Mhm.
least explore that. Are there relationships that could improve? Is there any kind of professional aspect that may improve? Because people will a lot of times say, because I work with you know, leaders a lot of times and CEOs, and they say, I want to feel confident. Is that self again? I want to feel confident when I come into the room. I want to feel confident that people see me as someone they should believe, someone that they should trust. And all of these things are not anything I think, but this is what they say to me and have for all these years. Are there any financial benefits for doing it? Maybe there could be cost reduction. There could be, who knows, what it could be. Then again, the aspirational stuff, anything fun, kind of recreational, like what might you want to do? We just want to explore it. Each person is so different. There may not be. And then also, what about just things that are kind of more part of the physicality, the body, if there is anything.
Mhm.
I want to be able to wear the sleeveless dress and feel blah, blah, blah. That's not, each person's different, but some people might have that. I want to wear the little black dress, or the guy says, I want to be able to wear the 34 waist jeans or whatever. If there's any aspect to that, so there's a lot of elements that go into it. It's very individual, and we want to explore and wring out every single drop out of it and not assume that because someone wants it, I want it. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to,
Mhm.
we have to know why. If we do, we'll move a mountain. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, with kind of the blueprint and the path already laid out before them, it isn't moving a mountain as someone may have to do if they're alone and it's confusing, and a lot of people, as we know, are dealing with misinformation that's out there, and everything is do this one day and don't do that the next, and which way do I go, and up is down and down is up, and holy cow, it's confusing. But when we remove that, this really complex thing called managing our health and weight and whatnot in 2023 becomes easier, and it becomes something that is doable and makes sense. And it also, for my clients, what I've noticed so much, and I get so much satisfaction from, is when they understand why, not their why, but why they have not had success so far. But it was based on eat less and exercise more.
Hmm.
I mean,
It's not enough.
it's not enough. And yeah, the math is the math. That's fine. But how do we do it? And how do we become better life managers? Because that's the emotional fitness part. How do we become better life managers so that we can, again, make that better decision when we're tired at the end of the day, when we're frustrated, when anxiety is high, and so forth. And so we look at all of those components to help our clients make those better decisions to stay on track more often.
Because that's when you fall back. When you're tired, you have to fall back on your commitment, which is that why. I just
Yeah,
like to give examples, even though, like you said, it is very individual. Your why will look really different. I do like to give examples to get people kind of that jumping off point
sure.
of what we mean by that. But I think one of the keys to finding your why, is to just keep asking why.
Yeah,
And I think that's what you're saying with drilling down. Like, why do you want to be healthier? Why do you want to, you know, be confident? Why does that matter, until you really get down to that base reason? And I think that can be really powerful.
like you had said too, just, in processing in just another couple of minutes that you and I have been talking, so often, if it's a professional and they may be somebody in the health field. When I first had a medical doctor come to me in the late 90s, I thought to myself, "Wait, what, why, what do you, how come, again, if intelligence was the answer, they'd be whatever they want to be because they've got it,
Mhm.
but that's not it. So it is all the other factors, that we're talking about. So yeah, it's going to take everything, but not in an overwhelming way, in a step by step, bite sized way, so to speak, so that they can, kind of assimilate everything and just kind of grow little by little to be able to make those better decisions.
Yeah, so kind of how we stay on track with the why power, but one thing that you said, which I really love this saying, is it's the start that stops most people.
Yeah,
And I think that there is so much information out there. It, like we've said, it's not a lack of information, it's not a lack of intelligence. It really is our brains and our thoughts and our a lot of that emotional fitness that keeps us from doing these things, but it is that start. It's like overcoming the inertia of beginning. So what would you say are a few things that maybe are some easy ways to get started with all of this?
yeah. So, if we kind of look at each thing, with regard to like nutrition and exercise, and then maybe the emotional fitness, components. Again, nutritionally, they have made some ready to go prepackaged real food items that are vegetable based and fruit based really easy to
Yeah.
access now. It didn't exist 30, 40 years ago. Yeah, and that's a good thing. Again, just using the rice cauliflower example, but any of the vegetables where you flip it around and it says ingredients, zucchini, ingredients, cauliflower, ingredient, whatever, green beans, any way that that can be brought in and used, please do. You don't have to get fresh green beans, cut them, wash. I mean, you don't have to. And, anything that's ready to go, that is real food, if you're able to, I'm all about it, and so again, just bringing that in, and again, bringing in more vegetables, hiding vegetables in things that have a stronger flavor. Any way you can hide them at all, because it's going to add bulk, it's going to add nutrients, you're going to feel fuller, and it's going to be improving health all along the way too. Because again, like you said, we're doing the reverse of what's happened. We're displacing ultra processed food as we bring in more real food. Um, Fresh fruit, of course, frozen fresh fruit, great. Anytime you can bring that in, bring that in. The other thing I would say is that my clients do a lot of batch cooking on one day, maybe a couple hours of batch cooking, and enough where it lasts them 4 or 5 days, where there's just stuff's ready to grab and go. And the easier things are to grab and go, I'm that way still, and I've been doing this a long time. If vegetables in the fridge are not grab and go ready for me, I'm way less likely to eat them. If I got to pull it out, wash it, cut it, prepare it, get it to go, what happens is you go, oh my gosh, it's a couple hours of prep time on a Sunday or whatever, but the time it saves you, and then also just that in minimal investment in your health and the behavior, it's just a win-win-win all the way across. And it really is a success strategy. So as far as nutrition goes, those are some of the things that I would say. What have you found as far as a starter?
Well, let me just make a comment on the batch cooking. I'm not very good at batch cooking like on a Sunday, but the way I get around that is I will double things all the time.
There you go.
So like if I'm making a sauce, I double it, I freeze half. If I'm making enchiladas, I double it, I freeze half.
Yeah.
If I'm making, or especially if I'm roasting vegetables, there's only 4 of us at home now because my 2 older boys are in college. I still make the same amount of roasted vegetables and I put half in the fridge because that's what I want to eat for lunch. I love roasted vegetables, but I'm not going to roast them at lunchtime. So anytime, especially that I'm doing vegetable preparation, if you don't have time or batch cooking isn't part of your life right now, or even if it is, anytime you're cooking, just make more and utilize the freezer. Because although in the technical definition, I think that things that are frozen are supposedly processed, but I don't think like your definition does not include that at all. I would
No,
say use
it's
that.
processed. It's not an ultra processed food though. It just
Right.
depends on the ingredients.
Yeah. So if you are using frozen vegetables or if you are able to prep some and freeze them, that is a really great way. Honestly, as far as starting, I think one of the easiest ways really is to just make the decision that on your very next bite, you're going to eat according to your hunger and fullness cues. This always gets people when they say, well, I've messed up now, or I'll just wait until Monday. Like you can actually start on your very next bite, or your very next meal. If you messed up, if you're like, I feel gross, I did not eat something that works well for my body, the next time you get hungry, you can eat something that works well for your body. It's just that very next bite can be something that works for you. And I think that making a big dramatic entrance is unnecessary. And so we need to kind of do away with the dramatic entrance of starting. And so I kind of love starting on a random Wednesday afternoon because we don't need to have that dramatic Monday start, that dramatic January 1st start. And I think that's what stops people is they don't know when. And like, I'm just here to say, like, today is a good day. Thursday
Yeah.
afternoon is a good
Oh, yeah,
time.
it's perfect.
Tuesday morning is a good time. Like, it's always a good time to start. And I think just dropping the idea that it needs to be the perfect time, because truthfully, something will always come up. Someone will always have an emergency. Your kids will always be part of your life. There's never really a time where you're not busy. It's just, it's just part of our lifestyle these days. And so waiting for things to calm down, that's not going to happen. That's just
Yeah.
your brain's way of putting it on delay.
There's another thing that I want to just say on the nutrition side for starting too is if you are on a multi-soda, multi-pop, multi-whatever kick, don't try to, I'm not saying don't, I'm not going to say don't. Do it if you want, but cut back one, not cut it back to one. Just cut back
Right.
one and start there. Say, hey, I was doing 6 a day. I'm at 5 now. Great. That because since we're talking about starting, that's a great thing to add in. Just start. Just bring that down a little bit. Bring your water up a little bit. We try not to just take away, like you said. Bring it up. Bring up the good. Bring up the real food. And let it displace the other. But with regard to the next bite, there's an acronym that I use called my students know that I say we need to call Dr. F. And it's just an acronym that helps me remember, which is, okay, like you said, you just had the whatever. And it wasn't on plan. You're like, oh, crap,
Mm-hmm.
D is do no further harm. Okay? So R is recover quickly, do the next right thing. recover quickly, do the next right thing. Not, like you said, not tomorrow, just do the next right thing, whatever that would be, but do no further harm. If you've got a flat tire on your car, let's not slash the other three.
Exactly.
Right. So we don't want to have, I don't know if you've probably heard this, but a couple of researchers, maybe 10 or so years ago, came up with this phrase called the "what the hell" effect. And we've all said it, but I didn't know it was an actual thing until a few years back, but it's called the "what the hell" effect. And it's where you go, well, I already had the thing. What the hell? I've already blown it. I may as well, whatever. We want to
I call it
avoid
might
that.
as well eats.
Yeah.
Well,
Might
if
as
I
well
did that, I might as well eat this.
fill in the blank. And so we're going to slash the other three tires when right now you just got, a tire with low air, not even flat. And then you slash the other three. So D is do no further harm. R is recover quickly, do the next right thing. And F is fail forward with forgiveness. And by failing forward, the way I think of that is only look in the rear view mirror enough to see if there's something to learn, not judge yourself, beat yourself up, and all that. But is there something to learn from it? Is there something we can take away that might help us prevent it in the future? Is there something we can take away? What set us up? What was going on? What were we feeling? What was the circumstance? So fail forward with forgiveness. Be self-compassionate. The research and my real world experience really come together strongly in that way, that if beating ourselves senseless was the answer, no one would be heavy, because people are really hard on themselves.
Yeah. If beating yourself up was effective, I don't think you and I would have jobs, to be honest. Because
Right.
people are so hard on themselves.
Yeah.
And we would never say the kinds of things that we say to ourselves out loud to another person.
Right. And
so
people then will say, yeah, but if I'm not hard, I need to be hard on myself because I'm too easy on myself. And there's a difference between holding yourself to some account as a friend would, treating yourself like a good friend, and really beating yourself up, which can be quite negative and usually goes the wrong way. And it's one of the reasons that it hasn't worked. So definitely go compassionate. But Dr. F is an acronym that people can kind of use to just goes along with what you're saying. But like you said, it is the next right thing. If you're able, whatever that is for you, is something to do.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Thank you so much. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do or how people can find you?
Sure, no problem. So we've been doing what we do virtually again for 23 years. So if someone does come into our program, we do meet you where you are, whatever that may be. We've got people that are already very active, already doing things quite well, and they still want to improve leanness, or they want to lose 10 or 15 pounds or whatever it may be, but they've been struggling for a while and they haven't been able to do it on their own. We'll meet you where you are. Maybe it's 30, 50 pounds. Maybe the behaviors are a little different. Maybe nutrition isn't quite there, or maybe it is. Maybe exercise isn't quite there. Maybe it is. Maybe the emotional part needs some attention, and it goes all the way up. So each person, although we're all human, fortunately that works to a reasonably good degree in medicine, and it works to a reasonably good degree in coaching. We are at least all human. Our heart is located in our chest cavity here, and generally speaking, it's always there. But that doesn't mean that we all respond in the same way, and it doesn't mean that we all need the exact same thing. It's the same in medicine. The physicians try to treat us the best they can, but we're all unique in certain ways. Certain medicines work better for one than another. Certain treatments work better for one than another, and it's the same here. But we're going to meet each person. We're going to make sure they have accountability, have the education to really get the right information, solid evidence-based information on the nutrition and exercise component. Once those are taught, then we are going to focus on three major legs in a way that person needs, unique to them. How much why, needs to be gone through? How deep do we need to go with that? How's it working? It could be really strong from the get-go. Maybe it needs a lot of work because it's really superficial. We're going to look at, are there compulsive overeating things regarding, processed food addiction? There isn't food addiction, but there is processed food addiction. So is there anything there? Not every single person who's overweight or obese has food addiction. So we'll look at that and kind of see if there's anything there. And then the other thing is just really this big area of emotional fitness where we want to help our clients feel authentically good more often with better self-regulation as they're doing it. And so there's regretfully good. And that's where, for that moment we ate whatever and it felt good for about 30 seconds, but we regret it later. We can have shopping therapy, retail therapy, and we feel good, but we spent $700 we didn't have. So we regretted it later. There's certain behaviors that you can feel regretfully good. You feel good in the moment, but you regret it later. We want to move more and more toward feeling authentically good overall, and then continuing to just kind of grow the inside, personal growth oriented and all of these emotional lifestyle factors, so that ultimately it comes down to, on the emotional fitness side, feeling authentically good, better self-regulation to honor the goals that you have, not that, we have for you, but the goals you have. But ultimately it comes down to, when the stimulus, whatever it may be, occurs, there's a space between the stimulus and the response. And when we're emotionally fit and when that's stronger and we can slow things down a little bit, we can bring down catastrophics, we can improve our thought processes, and we're being driven by that strong why, whatever the stimulus is, within that space, we all have the choice to determine what the response is going to be. So it's about helping them create that little bit of space so that they can make the better choice on the stressful day, make the better choice when they would ordinarily be triggered by whatever it may be. An argument with the spouse, or the situation here, or the work environment, or whatever, or the kids, or whatever it may be, where normally it's just like a light switch. It just goes, right? And it's like, that happened, I go right to this every time.
Yeah. Right.
And if we can help with it, with stronger emotional fitness and awareness and all of that and support, when that stimulus occurs, they can see that there's that space where they at least have the ability to go, no, I'm going to do this instead. There's an alternative. There's a different coping mechanism. There's a different way. And it's just enough space to make the better choice, where all of a sudden the pattern starts to be broken. So we come at it from all of that in a very supportive way that meets our clients where they are. And they can find us real simple at lluniversity.com.
Okay, sounds good. I love hearing how people describe similar things to what I do with different words. Like, just some of your terms, I'm like, oh yeah, I do that. I just call it something different. I just love that. It's really fun to just get a lot of other people who are out to help people in the same way. I love your words there about emotional fitness. I think that is so key here with health and weight loss, because it really is, I feel like, the missing link that has not been given to us with all of the meal planned diets, all of the food lists that I've followed over the years. No one ever said, oh, and hey, if you don't feel like eating this, here's what to do. And I think that's where this emotional fitness comes in, because guess what? A lot of times I didn't feel like eating that.
Yeah.
And then I thought I was broken because I couldn't follow their food lists and their diet plan. And so I think that emotional fitness piece is so important. It's one of the things I focus on as well. So I'm so glad to hear that is a key piece of your program. So thank you again so much for being here. And I look forward to following you as well on Instagram and all the places that you are linked. And we'll put all that in the show notes as well.
You bet. Thanks so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
I really hope you enjoyed this conversation with David Greenwalt. I really do love the way he talks about emotional fitness. Such a great way to express the type of coaching I do as well, to have your intentional thoughts where you want them and be able to process cravings through the tools I teach. That's all emotional fitness. Don't forget, I've got that Go To Meals free ebook for you, and that is also a great way to get started with healthy eating. It's a good way to eliminate the drama of what you're going to eat and make it easy to plan your meals. So the link to that, of course, is in the show notes. So grab that today. Hey, thanks for listening today. If you're ready to get some personalized coaching from me, I'd encourage you to schedule a free strategy session. Visit www.wellwithlisa.as.me, or it's easier just to find that link in the show notes. We'll talk about where you currently are with your weight loss goals, and I'll give you some actionable tools you can start implementing right away. Before you go, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you can receive new episodes right when they're released. And if you're learning something new and enjoying the podcast, I'd love for you to leave me a 5-star rating and a review. Thanks again for joining me, Lisa Salisbury, in this episode of Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well.